Hey guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about goals. I think I wouldn't be where I'm at right now, just in my stage in career and um, the little that I've accomplished, but still, how much I've grown as a person has really a lot to do with just my ability and by the grace of God, being able to have pretty good discipline when it comes to goal setting. And I think having specific goals that are short term and long term, I think are incredibly important. And I think I mean, I don't watch him as much, but I remember when I used to watch Jordan Peterson, he'd talk about a lot of people, unfortunately, don't set goals, or if they do, they're very blurry, very vague. And the reason for that's just people are afraid to fail. So if they had a very concrete, very metric driven um, goal of, hey, I want to make this much money or I want to have this much invested or saved by this point to buy a house, and it doesn't happen, they basically don't want A, the accountability, or B, just the the realization of failure. But then again, that's the whole point, right? Having goals is so you don't drift, which I'm getting kind of ahead of myself, but I think specifically splitting up your goals, and no matter what point in life you're at, if you're in school, if you're in college, if you're just getting out of college and you're working, or if you've been in your profession for you know decades at this point, or a couple of years, doesn't matter. I think having both short-term and long-term goals that are very tangible, that are attainable, are really important. So I've had some people tell me, because I have a daily planner, and it has like all the stuff down to, hey, I have to do my rosaries every day, reading my Bible every day. There's the chapter. I have uh, work on there, my gym split. I've got a couple other things on there, and people say, oh, those are just tasks you have to get done. I think that's kind of cutting ourselves short. I mean, I think it's important to have a really strict plan. And I think having just the absolute non-negotiable things that you have to get done. And I think that's what the planner is good for. So like typically at work, I have like the tasks that I have to do, whether it be like, my CRM tasks, my emails, and then whatever meetings, some planning stuff, and then the rest is overflow. I think taking that same approach in your personal life is really important. And that's basically what I've done. Um, my personal life very much mirrors how I operate in my professional life. Obviously, the tasks are just completely different, but the methodology is pretty much identical. So, like I said, I have short term goals. I think your daily goals, or the stuff that you want to get done for that particular day that you have on like your planner of, like I said, going to the gym, praying your rosaries, reading your Bible, working, meal prepping, doing the laundry, whatever it is, those are all, in my opinion, short term goals, because you can not get those done and they basically get pushed, which is the exact same thing that happens with a goal, right? If you don't save as much as you want to by a certain date, well, guess what? Now that date gets pushed. So once you make that amount of money that you want to make, you're maybe 2 weeks behind or a month behind or whatever. Same thing goes if you decide, hey, I'm not going to do laundry today. I'm too lazy, or I'm too tired, or whatever. I don't want to say lazy. I know some people work some pretty rough jobs, but yeah, I mean, if you're just not getting something done, it doesn't just disappear. Is basically what I'm saying. So identifying those as short-term goals, I think is really important. Um, and then, like I said, long-term goals, I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? I think depending on what people's horizons are, it'll look different. So I have some very, very, very long-term goals. Like for example, if I'm invested in the stock market, so I've got stuff that I wouldn't be taking out until retirement, which is 30, 40 plus years from now. And then I've got some long-term goals that are like a year, 5 years, 10 years out, that have to do with, buying property, or getting to a certain point in my career. I have goals specifically for the content that I'm doing in my stream schedule, and then obviously on YouTube. So, uh, yeah, I think having those goals split is super important. So like what I do is I basically have a planner that lists every single day of the year. So I've had one, and I have them. I don't throw them out. I have them saved, or have them, sorry, stored in my closet. So I have like my 2024, to 2025, and I think I've been going back doing it since like 2017 or something, 2018. So I have every single day laid out of what I did, and it's pretty cool. I can kind of look back and see what I had going on during that point in my life. Uh, and then, like I said, having my long-term goals, I have a whiteboard and a couple different spreadsheets and a separate, bigger, um, uh, kind of graph notebook that is specifically all of like the longer term goals that are a couple of years out to all the way out to retirement. So, um, I think goals are really important in that the short term ones are pretty easy to be very specific on, just because obviously if they're a day or a week out, then what basically has to be done with very little um, variables being thrown at you for possible delays or adjustments. But I think long term stuff, I think still can be very specific. Um, I just think it has to be realistic, right? I mean, if I had becoming a billionaire in 5 years, and that's with basically that sort of thing though too is like that at face value is pretty comical, and it is, even with a plan. But it becomes more comical if I just basically have that at the top of my whiteboard to be a billionaire in 5 years. I mean, it's like there's no plan in place, right? There's no um I'm giving a sneak peek of my next video, but there's no launch pad, right? There's nothing that can propel me to get to that point that basically makes that vision just a little bit clearer from present day. So again, I think goal setting is so incredibly important. And um, I think one of the biggest kind of chain reactions that happens when you become very disciplined and you become very, very just goal oriented and focused on your purpose is you tend to kind of grow apart from the people that you grew up with. And that's something that I've experienced very much, I'd say, over the last couple of years. And I still have really good relationships with my previous friend groups and all that good stuff. But you'll notice, especially as you guys, some of you that are graduating college and kind of starting your careers, the people that you've known your whole life, that you went to middle school, high school with, um, although you've known them technically longer than new friend groups that you meet in your career, or as you move out in your new areas where you work, you're going to actually tend to become closer with them, not only because it's more recent, but just because typically those relationships are with people that um, basically have to have a good head on their shoulder because they're on their own or they're in their career, and there's just a lot more commonality between you and them. So like for me, yeah, as soon as I moved to where I'm at now, I moved last year to a different state. I got with like a new church, and the people here are just you know way more Catholic. They're not as secular as the friends that I had back home. Which again, I still love those friends, and I pray that they they have the Holy Spirit find them, and that they don't get involved in all the kind of secular things that come with living in the city, right? Partying and drinking excessively, all that stuff. Not to say that I obviously had my fair share of that stuff as well, but I guess what I'm getting at, I know I'm kind of rambling right now, but I think it's normal to basically grow apart. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean that anybody did anything wrong. I just think that what naturally happens is a lot of people that you grew up with, you basically, I don't want to say you had to hang out with them, but it was just what was available to you, right? I mean, you couldn't drive before, you couldn't really get out of classes. You would have the same classes with the same people, especially growing up. Whereas now, now that you're kind of thrown to the wolves and having to live on your own, or having to kind of fend for yourself and pay bills and all that stuff, you start to really gravitate towards people that aren't, as I like to call, drifters. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that I know that are kind of drifting by. They don't really have any goals. They don't really have a North Star. They don't really have anything that they're chasing. Um, they're essentially just collecting paychecks, not really interested in the career that they're in, just waiting to clock out Friday, party, you know, Friday and Saturday, and then kind of do it all over the next week. And yeah, it's not a obviously it's not a great way to live, but it's also just not sustainable. I mean, that's a fast track way to burn out. So again, I know this video is all over the place. I cannot stress the importance of sitting down, spending time alone, and figuring out really what you've done and what you want to get done in the next couple of years, and then just an easy couple of days schedule that you have if you haven't already done that. So I hope this was helpful. Hope you guys are having a good day, and I will see you guys on the next video. Thanks. Bye.